Before Denmark was bound by crown or council, it was a land torn by pride and war. Among the many chieftains, one rose above the rest, Gorm, son of Hardignot, haunted by his father's fall and driven by a vision greater than blood or border. As the mist lifts from the shorelines, the longships emerge bearing challengers from rival clans. Gorm stands above them, cloaked in silence, the wind stirring his fur like the omen of a storm yet to break. Beside him stood the old Thane, his voice grave as the cold. "They come to test you," he said. "They smell weakness since your father's death." But Gorm's gaze never wavered. "Then they smell wrong," he replied. "My father dreamed of one Denmark. I will make it real." But Thane, wise and wary, offered caution. "Dreams are not enough. The Saxons push from the south, the chieftains reject your claim, and the people." Gorm answered not with doubt but with quiet fire. "The people need a king who can protect them from both." Night fell upon the hall at Jelling, but warmth did not follow. Beneath the firelight, warriors feasted not in celebration but in uneasy truce. At the high table, two powers sat divided not by distance but by vision. The rival chieftain raised his horn, his voice laced with mockery. "To Gorm, heir to Hardignot, may ambition not exceed strength." Laughter stirred like wolves circling, but Gorm did not flinch. His reply cut sharper than any blade. "To unity, something you've never understood." The rival's smirk faded. His words turned bitter, heavy with old wounds. "Unity under you? The son who lost his father's lands?" Gorm's voice dropped, cold as steel. "I offer you an alliance. Once." The room held its breath. "And I offer you reality," the rival spat. "Denmark has never been one kingdom. It never will be." Then the dagger struck. "Your father died a failure. Follow his path and so will you." The insult flared in Gorm's eyes, but he did not rise in anger. He stood with purpose, not rage. Before swords could leave their sheaths, the doors burst wide. A merchant stumbled through smoke and fear, voice breaking as he cried, "Saxon warriors cross the southern border. 3 villages burn." Feast and feud were forgotten. The fire in the hearth was nothing to the one now spreading across Denmark. Dawn returned to Jelling with neither peace nor promise. Fog crept low across the earth, curling like doubt beneath the feet of Jarls summoned from every corner of the land. There, outside Gorm's longhouse, a table stood rough-hewn and ancient, a map unfurled upon it like the soul of Denmark itself, and over it loomed a man with fire behind his eyes. Gorm spoke not as a son, but as a leader awakening. "The Saxons push north, believing we are too divided to resist. The chieftain from last night already rides to defend his claim alone." The Jarls listened, arms crossed, hearts guarded. One spoke, sharp and proud. "Let him. Why should we bleed for his lands?" But Gorm saw further than borders or grudges. He pointed to the map, voice rising like thunder from the still earth. "Because divided, the Saxons will take us piece by piece. United, we stop them now." Some scoffed. Others said nothing. But all heard him. And then came words that would echo beyond the edge of that fog-bound council for generations. "I will take 3 ships south to aid him, not because he deserves it, but because those are Danish lands, Danish people." Then Thane stepped forward, eyes full of ancient caution. "And if you fall, everything your father built." Gorm turned, voice lower now, measure immovable. "My father built on shifting sand." He looked to the mist-wrapped horizon. "I will build on stone." The Saxons did not wait. Southward, fire fed on thatch and timber. Villages that bore Danish names were swallowed in flame, their cries rising into a sky black with betrayal. But from the smoke-choked sea came longships, swift, silent, their sails drawn taut with purpose. Gorm had come, not with boasts, but with blades. He leapt from his ship like a storm breaking over the shore. Behind him surged his warriors. Within the village, ruin reigned. The rival chieftain, proud, bloodied, cornered, fought not for power now, but for breath. Pinned behind broken carts, his men fell one by one. His spear cracked and his strength waned, and in that final moment, when even hope seemed to flee, the horns sounded. Gorm struck like a tempest. Steel met steel. Saxon blades clashed with northern fury as the Danes surged through flame and ash. He fought not as a prince, but as a brother of battle, his cloak a blur of smoke and blood. The enemy faltered, the tide turned, and when the last Saxon fell, Gorm found the chieftain slumped amid rubble and cinders. Their eyes met, not as rivals now, but as men who had both stood between death and their people. "I didn't ask for your help," the chieftain rasped, pride clinging to every breath, but Gorm's voice was iron wrapped in calm. "You didn't need to. These are Danish people. All Danish people are under my protection." And in that moment, something shifted. "So I'm to kneel now?" the chieftain muttered, pledged to Hardignut's ambitious son, but Gorm's reply pierced deeper than any sword. "No, you're to see what stands before you, not Hardignut's son, Gorm, a king who fights not just for his lands, but for all of Denmark." Behind them, the young merchant watched with awe, ash clinging to his skin. "Word of this will spread to every coast," he whispered, "that you came to aid a rival. And word of the Saxon threat as well," Gorm replied, eyes turned south. "Let all of Denmark know both." Victory had come, but so had the reckoning. Unity, once only spoken of, now had a heartbeat bought in fire, sealed in blood. They gathered at Jelling, the chieftains of fractured Denmark, weathered men bound by old grudges and older fears. Around the fire, they sat in a circle of iron wills and splintered loyalties. At the center stood Gorm, cloaked not in armor, but in expectation. He had proven himself in war. But now came the greater battle. A voice rose sharp, scornful. "One victory against Saxon raiders does not make you king of all Denmark." Gorm's reply was low and even, like a tide that cannot be held back. "No, but the next Saxon force won't be raiders. It will be war." Another voice, defiant, broke through. "Then we each defend our lands as we always have." Gorm's patience cracked not in rage but in bitter truth. "And fall as we always have." The room erupted in voices crashing, chairs scraping, fists pounding. Words became weapons, and in the storm of argument, Gorm stood alone. Then silence. A voice, unexpected in its force, carved through the chaos. "Enough! I've heard enough!" It was the rival chieftain, no longer seated. He stood, the firelight dancing in his eyes. But this was not the man who had once mocked unity. "Gorm speaks of unity while demanding power," he said. "I've seen no proof this isn't about his glory." And in that moment, Gorm's hope began to falter, not to sword or flame, but to doubt. His eyes dropped. A dream born of ash and blood now teetered on the edge of ruin. But then, the rival's voice changed. "But I have seen him risk his life for Danish people who weren't his own." The room fell still once more, not from command, but from respect. And in the quiet that followed, something stirred. The dream had not died. It had simply been waiting for belief. Gorm stepped forward. No crown rested on his brow. No sword was raised, but every eye turned to him, and every breath waited on his next. "I don't ask you to surrender your power," he began, voice steady as stone. "I ask you to transform it." There was no threat in his tone, no plea, only clarity. "Each of you remains lord of your lands," he continued, "but together we are Denmark. One army, one voice when the outside world comes knocking." He gestured to the floor, and there, rolled out like a promise, was the map of their homeland, where Saxon raids had struck. Wooden markers dotted the map, villages, ships, flames, a fragile network that might yet be forged into something stronger. "A chain of signal fires along our borders, shared ships to guard our seas. Each region offers what it grows best. Then came the words that would echo far beyond the walls of that longhouse. I would have Denmark be not just a place, but a people, not held together by fear of a king, but by the strength of being one. A pause followed, heavy with meaning. Then a voice from the once bitter rival, now curious, now open. And if we follow you, what are we building? Gorm's eyes did not flicker. His voice did not rise. With quiet certainty he spoke, something that will outlive us all. And in the flickering torchlight, in the ring of scarred chieftains and wary hearts, a new shape began to form, not of conquest, but of kingdom. They gathered at Gelling not as enemies, nor as strangers, but as something new. Chieftains, warriors, and common folk alike circled the ancient mound where stone met sky, and the past was buried so something greater might rise. And at the center stood Gorm, not clad in gold or glory, but in fur and earth, a man of soil, blood, and burden. On this day, the Skald proclaimed, his voice rising like a banner in the wind, the chieftains of these lands named Gorm first among equals, King of Denmark. There were no cheers yet. Then through the circle stepped the rival chieftain. His sword was not raised, but offered. Slowly, solemnly, he knelt and laid it at Gorm's feet. "Prove me right." And Gorm, eyes clear, voice steady, answered simply, "I will." Around them, voices finally rose, not in revelry, but recognition. The blades of once divided men lifted together. The North had a king, but even in triumph, Gorm's gaze wandered past the crowd, where a lone rider watched. A woman, cloaked against the wind, sat on her horse in silence. Then Thane, at Gorm's side, murmured like a man reciting prophecy, "Thera Danabot, daughter of the North. They say her wisdom matches her beauty." Gorm didn't move. His voice was quiet but full of intent. "Invite her to Gelling. If I am to build a dynasty, I'll need more than warriors." And so it began, not with conquest, but with choice. Gorm, first of his name, king by merit, not mandate. The crowd roared, the horns blew. Thus began the reign of Gorm, the first true king of Denmark. But uniting a kingdom was only the beginning. Holding it together would require something more. The saga of Gorm had only just begun.